Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. Today is also going to be the final video of 2016, so I hope everyone is having a good time with the holidays, and of course best wishes for 2017 to everyone. As you know, there's a war going on in EVE for me at the moment, so I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with the Raitaros, but as always for EVE Talk we are here for the market, so let's sit down, let's get to the market window, and as always let's get started with plex at 40 seconds. So well, this one is one anomaly. Someone is selling a plex at 985 million, which is just above the buyers. I guess he wants the cash right now. But most plex, well, 1,015,000,000 to 1,025,000,000. So 20 of them is going to put a little bit of pressure on other sellers to go just below him. So I would say on the chart you can see that we are slowing down, but we're still slowly heading down. The median daily averages are going down. 5-day moving average still below the 20-day moving average. Volumes are still up a little bit, so this is probably why the hesitation, but in general we're still seeing the downtrend in plex taking shape. If, as I expect, after January, because right now there is an interesting war that is starting with Test CO2 attacking Steenwagen, who are going to be held by the goons, but if that dies down or turns out to be another short one-sided thing, I think the activity may continue to decrease, and that will put some serious pressure on plex, let's say February, March, as people also start to get out of their winter gaming habits and things like that. So honestly, I think that the November peak will turn out to become the peak for this year, and I don't think that we'll make a second one unless something absolutely drastic happens in the war, like a BR fight or something like that. So those are my expectations on plex. There is continued pressure, so obviously you're a little bit too late to sell, I feel, and I think at this point it's just about trying to see at which prices you're willing to purchase a few plexes as investments. Still a little bit early for me to do that. Maybe that one plex at 985, which is already gone, would have been a good buy, and someone definitely agreed with me. Next up, the multiple pilot training certificates. Oh, those actually going up a little bit again. 5-day moving average crossing the 20-day moving average. That's quite interesting, selling for 1,060,000,000, and the buyers, first one coming in at 1 billion is. Let's take a quick look for the plexes at the trade hub here. Very interesting. Look at that. All of this in the perimeter trade hub going for 1,010,000,000, then down to 1,005,000,000, and then down to 1 billion ISK for the sellers on plexes in the perimeter trade hub. That's quite a big difference, and yeah, plexes for less than 1 billion just for the sellers is something we haven't seen in a while. So that's good news for people that are looking to actively grab their plex. It would be a pretty risky maneuver, I think, to try and buy some plex there and then move them to the Cheetah headquarters. So I think people will want to trade within this trade hub. On the buyer side, there are just a couple more buyers going in at 985 million here. So it's not a big difference on the buyer side of things. Very interesting to see the plex trade difference between the perimeter trade hub and Cheetah itself, which is of course due to the taxes, the lower taxes that you can get on the perimeter trade hub. But yeah, a couple of cheap plexes. If you're looking to buy some plex in order to use them, definitely go for the perimeter trade hub and then use it right away so that it's not in a player-owned structure. But very good information, and was a very good tip to add this quick check, especially on the plexes. So multiple pilot trade certificates are doing something a little bit weird. They're actually going up a little bit. We'll have to see in the upcoming weeks if this is something that is sustained or if it is because the pilot trading certificates are a smaller market. Pilot body resculpt next. That one is definitely going down under pressure, I think, from the plex influence. It's also a tiny market. You can see very few sellers here. Buyers are at 201 million, sellers at 247 million, and as an average price here we can look at around 240 million indeed. So very small volumes. This is honestly, unless something happens that that CCP does, that provides, let's say, gameplay for your characters or something like that, I actually think that this is going to remain a very, very small market. Skill extractors could be interesting to give an indication for plex. So you can see that just a couple of days ago we tried to go up a little bit, tried to meet the 20-day moving average with the 5-day moving average, but in the last few days averages have gone back down. Sellers are at 235.6 million and the buyers are at 230 million. Quick check of the perimeter trades up 233 million, so a little discount but not that much in the skill extractors. It's very interesting to see the difference that is so big in the plex market itself. For skill extractors, going down in the last few days is an indication that there is continued pressure on the plex market as well. So I honestly think that the pilot training certificate anomaly here going up is a bit of an anomaly. Oops, next up we've got the skill injectors. Could be interesting to see what those are doing. Those are actually going up quite substantially. Very nice to see those make a double top since November. They're trying to do that. 643 million for the sellers, 617.5 million for the buyers. Volumes are quite decent. All of this is in the last 24 hours, including 99 here and 99 right there. I think it's an indication of strong demand for skill injectors. A possible explanation for the increased price in, let's say, the last week or so, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 days, is of course the war, where Test and CO2 announced that they would start another war. The Imperium is also getting involved, so both sides do have very strong programs for alpha characters, but if you want in on their better doctrine ships, you'll want to have a couple of skill injectors to have the skill points and follow the skill plans as well. So I think it's a possible explanation for the skill injector increase in price. A lot is going to ride on this war, I think, to see what's going to happen for the skill injectors and for plexes as well in the upcoming weeks. So let's hope it becomes quite an active one that involves lots of blowing up stuff. After this, we've got some minerals. That's going to be at 710. Okay, let's take a look here. Tritanium, unfortunately, still going down, trying to land around 5 ISK, but it's not going so well because the first sellers at 499 are coming in. 22 million units, it's not that much, but if you look at the last 24 hours, still here, almost 2 pages. A lot of orders that are more than 100 million, including some of the latest ones at 5 ISK. So it's a desperate defense to defend 5 ISK on the seller side, but it's just not gonna work out. I think Tritanium is at risk of going below 5 ISK, which is very, very low. I wouldn't be mining and selling the Tritanium at the moment, to be honest, because 6-7 ISK is a normal price. So I would be stocking that up, even though it does take a lot of room to stock up on Tritanium. Let's see what the other high-sec minerals are doing then. Pyrite tried to crawl back a little bit towards 7 or above 7, but to no avail. As you can see, we're once again going down on the median daily prices. Today is even below 7 ISK. First sellers coming in at 689, buyers are at 672. This is a serious fallback of the Tritanium market, and once again we would need major activity, not like major losses, to actually increase demand here all of a sudden and cause an increase in price. So again, pyrite pretty much at an all-time low, I think, for less than 7 ISK, and I would not be selling that at the moment. I would actually risk not investing in it, but keeping the stocks that you mine to wait for a better sell opportunity. Next up, we've got Mexalon. That one is actually doing a bit of a comeback. That's nice to see, trying to head back to 65 ISK on the chart here, with a bottom at 54. Pretty big volume, so people are starting to invest in their Mexalon stocks, it seems. But sellers in the last 24 hours still coming in, 2 pages, yeah, pretty much 2 pages, going from 65 ISK down to 61, 60.92. The buyers are at 60.83, so this is going to put a quick stop on this increase in price on the median daily price. You can already see we peaked at 63 and now we're already going to go back down, and the pressure is pretty damn real when it comes to the supply side of things. So I think this will actually go back down once again, and we'll try going below 60 is pretty soon on the seller side. Isogen next, also trying to go back up on big volume, so I think some investors are coming in, but once again 70 ISK as the top, and the next median daily price is already going back down. So if sellers are coming in below 69, not just yet, that's quite interesting. So in the last 24 hours, we're going from 73 ISK to 69 ISK, and the buyers are at 67.65, but I think pressure will be back on, and I actually think that these increases in price for the high-sec minerals are going to be short-lived. That's my expectation for those. Noxium next, still under pressure, still going down, 6-month low, 1-year low. Here a median daily price of 359 ISK. That is extremely low. Sellers are at 371. That's a single seller. Let's say 382 is more accurate. Buyers are at 361 ISK. And despite that, despite these 1-year low prices, we still have more than a front page of new sell orders of Noxium coming in. So oversupply in general across the board for the high-sec minerals is definitely the name of the game. We're also seeing the first few investors stepping in at really low prices here for Isogen. It seems that below 60 ISK was a trigger, and for Mexalon below 55, I think, yeah, below 55 seems to have been a trigger. It gives you an idea of where investors are looking at purchasing their big stocks of minerals for the future, and it may be okay for you to start doing so, or at least to not just dump everything that you're mining in high-sec right to the market at the moment. Next up for Nullsec, we've got Zytrine. Oh, Zytrine trying to go back up. Median daily price 1100 right here. Sellers are at 1150. Buyers are at 1072 ISK. It's interesting. Yeah, the Nullsec minerals definitely making a little bit of a comeback after a bottom price in November, which coincides with the peak for plexus. Keep that in mind. There's more stuff, much more stuff, 3 to 4 times more stuff in EVE Online, then there is actually ISK for the values that's given to them. And so if a lot of ISK is flowing into plexus as you have a peak in November, that means that ISK is not flowing in other goods and is possibly causing partly the decrease in price in some of these goods, such as here the Nullsec minerals. Of course, a lot of this is also due to the changes to the Orca, for instance, but it's also part of the equation for sure. So Zytrine coming back a little bit, you can see some higher volume, so a lot of purchasing happening. And on the mega side of things, we see a bit of a double jump here and going back down to 1312. So I think last week we were pretty much empty of sellers of Megasite, and so a lot of them have come in. Yeah, here you can see some older orders going to 1420, 1470, almost 1500 ISK, as the now sellers are coming in, undercutting quite seriously towards 1372 ISK. Buyers are at 1300 ISK, still quite respectable if you bought some of this on the downtrend here towards the bottom of 1000 ISK. That was a decent amount of ISK, and actually sold some of my stocks on this increase in price at this range as well. I'm pretty happy that I did so, because you can see that competition to sell off stocks is quite high as well right here on the seller side of things. And finally we've got Morphite that is stopping its ascent. I think I sold some of my Morphite stocks as well for a little bit of profit at around 1100, back to 10,000. And yeah, sellers coming in at 10,346, buyers at 9,650 pretty much. And we can see in the last 24 hours a full front page going from 10,720 to 10,346. People are trying to sell their Morphite that they've bought on the cheap for some profits as well. Very interesting stuff. Pretty mixed picture here, although easy to understand, of course. High-sec minerals down the drain, 6-month, 1-year lows are in play. Nullsec minerals making a little bit of a comeback but hesitating, and it's the same for Morphite as well. Alright, next up we've got some PI 1410. If I sniffle and sound a little weird, it's because I caught a cold at my job. I've been trying to fight it off with a lot of sleeping. It's been going pretty well. I haven't really gotten sick or had to like stay home from work or anything like that, but I do feel that my throat is a little itchy and things like that. So that's why the sniffles and the weird voice possibly. So next up we've got some PI. We'll just start from the top. Here are the construction blocks Still holding at the current price range of around 11,000 ISK, which is around average an okay price for construction blocks. Fresh supply, decently strong, almost a full front page including 100,000 units coming in the last 24 hours. And we are actually going from around 1200 ISK to 11,300 ISK for construction blocks. So we are under pressure, but we are managing to maintain a decent price at least. Consumer electronics next, also going down towards 10,600 ISK, which on the 1 year chart is still okay, around average I would say. Sellers 11,000, that's just one of them. 11,400 for the sellers, 10,600 for the buyers. With an average price then right here of 10,900, that does mean that a lot of people just sell their consumer electronics straight to the buyers at this point. With a little bit of patience, you can definitely still get an okay price for consumer electronics. Next up here we got coolants making a little bit of a comeback, but in the last few days we're falling back. So as high as 13,000 ISK, which is obviously well above the average, but currently sellers have of course spotted that opportunity and closed the gap in just a few days from 13,000 to 12,600 ISK. First one coming in with 64,000 units at 12,000 as well, trying to dictate the price there. Buyers are at 11,800. If this volume isn't absorbed too quickly, well, 1 million units a day, this should get absorbed pretty quickly, but this is going to put some pressure on the price of coolants. So last week was the right time to try and sell your stocks of that. Enriched uranium next. Coolants enriched uranium are tied to fuel blocks, and interestingly enough, enriched uranium heading for 6-month lows here at 11,600 ISK. On the 1 year chart we're starting, well, if you look right here in September, we're still at around the average, but we're heading towards a lower region for sure. Fresh supply, still a full front page, 12,400 for the sellers, 11,000 for the buyers. So a bit of pressure on enriched uranium, and this indicates that the PI market is not tied directly to its end product, because both of these, enriched uranium and coolants, are used substantially in fuel production. Mechanical parts next, building up to a 6-month high of 12,800 ISK, 12,600 for the sellers now, a couple coming in of course trying to drive the price back down, 11,700 for the buyers. They had to follow up, so that's quite interesting. It's your time to sell mechanical parts. These are very easy to produce from barren worlds, and I'm making a bit of that, so yeah, very interesting to once again see something completely different on 3 goods that are just as easy to produce pretty much, and are all 3 used in a fuel block. So quite interesting here. 6-month high, practically a 1 year high. I think if you look at the 1 year chart, 1 year high as well for mechanical parts here. Very much an alive market here, this PI stuff. Oxygen under pressure a little bit, 404 as an average price. Sellers at 421, buyers at 404. Lack of demand and still some supply coming in is causing a bit of trouble for the oxygen market now. Robotics next, also under pressure, but if you look at the 1 year chart here, especially the start, we're still above average, I would say, at 92,000 ISK. Maybe let's call it average, because yeah, some action. No, 93 for the sellers, 90.5 for the buyers. It's okay to sell, but you're not getting the best price either. Rocket fuel is up next. That's that weird chart with the really weird median daily prices. Under pressure a bit, 5-day moving average heading below 12,000 ISK, sellers heading, a couple of them below 12,000 ISK, 12,700 for most of them, 11,378. It's a pretty healthy spread. You can see half a front page of new sell orders, new buy orders, not that many of them, causing a bit of pressure on rocket fuels. But in general, if you look at this 1 year chart, it's actually probably the most stable PI good that we check in Eve Talk. Self-harmonizing power core, no surprise there, it's tied to construction of the new structures, and as a result, of course, you have this peak in early November with the Ascension expansion, and now we're slowly going back down as people have produced and prepared for their engineering complexes, and more supply keeps coming in. We're now heading towards 2.2 million on average, 2.2 for the sellers, 2.2 for the buyers. Continued pressure is obviously there. Superconductors, after a pretty weak summer, we actually peaked in December and we're now battling for a bit of stability with this big volume spike right here. Currently, sellers are still at, well, except for two of them, 16,200 and the buyers at 14,000. So it's still a good time to try and sell some of your superconductors. Test cultures next, also coming just from a 1 year high point, but now drastically going down to 12,800. And is that due to a lot of sell orders? Well, you can see here in the last 22 days, I would say, from 15,000 to the first one coming in 14,300, 14,000, 13,100, bars at 12,700. There will be some hesitation. This 1 year high will need to be digested, but we are obviously in a good place to sell test cultures. The peak is past though. And finally, we've got wetware mainframes, very similar of course to the self-harmonizing power cores. Bit of a bubble up here in early November with the Ascension expansion, and now you can see that we're slowly going down here. Median daily price of 2.6 million. Sellers are at 2.9, buyers at 2.6. The lack of demand, and as supply keeps coming in, you can see that here 1.5 front pages in the last 24 hours is going to continue to put slow pressure on these wetware mainframes as well. So a pretty good market, a lot of action to be spotted in the refined planetary materials at the moment. Next up, Tech 1 chips, that's 2130. Let's grab those and let's see. Unfortunately, of course, with high-sec minerals going down so drastically and still going down, we're probably going to get to see a lot of much lower prices. Well, you can call this unfortunate for the people that make this and try to sell this. Of course, for the people that want to fly them, want to build up fleet doctrines and things like that, it's pretty good. Caracal's average price below 10 million. Sellers are at 9.9 million, buyers at 9.1 million. Yep, clearly under pressure. I think lack of action, lack of demand, lack of alpha clones in these cruiser skills just yet means that there has been quite a bit of oversupply, and of course the lower mineral prices. Caracals for less than 10 million, that's pretty cheap. Coercer next. Coercer is, I think, a destroyer, if I'm not mistaken. Come on, chart, load up, please. Yes, finally. Man, very slowly. So a standard destroyer, you can see a bit of pressure in the last few weeks as well, but still managing to hold a pretty healthy average. That's okay. 1.3 million for the sellers, 1.2 for the first buyer coming in, more like 1.1 for most of them. It's a very small market. It's also a destroyer, so the bigger the ship, the bigger the impact of the mineral prices. And so this is, I think, why we're seeing a more constant course market. It's also a very tiny market with average quantities of like around 100 of them being sold. Next up, the Dominics. Okay, this feels a little sluggish. We still have that one anomalous data point here. We can once again see that we went down very low, 260 million. So we crawled back a little bit. Maybe some people bought some Dominixes for Nasdaq action, or just got some stocks ready or things like that. And yeah, we might want to reload the market window here if that's at all possible. So that was a chart. Nope, still very slow. Nope, it's not downtime yet. There we go. So sellers up to 170 million ISK. Still, we do see half a front page coming in the last 24 hours, including 8 of them as the final sellers. Buyers at 164, and so Dominix as well. Because of this anomalous data point, it's not that easy to show the good chart, but there you go. This downtrend here since November is probably partly due to mineral prices going down. A little bit of a bump up on higher volumes means some investments happening. Merlin next, staying decently average, although we start the month at around 400,000 ISK. We end here median daily price at around, well, quite a bit less than that. Man, sometimes then just doesn't load anymore. Pretty weird. 331,000 for the sellers, 300,000 for the buyers. So you can see the pressure. You can also see the increased volumes due to alpha clones. It's dying down a little bit in the last few days, in the last week or so. But it is also a frigate, so the mineral price impact is quite a bit smaller because you need a lot less of those. Oracle next, here again, Average price 80 million up until November, and now in 2 steps going down towards 66 million ISK. Bit of hesitation at the tail end, 72 million for the sellers, 60 million for the buyers, but I think there's also a bit of volumes here and there. So some people are investing a little bit in these ships, but they're not going crazy either, causing tiny little bumps, but nothing to speculate on either. Raven is a battleship next. Once again, we can see that we went very low for the Raven towards 150 million. So we're crawling out of that 1 year low probably, but probably pretty low demand. Sellers back to 162 million. They're not coming in that quickly this time, so this might just stop at this point and try to move sideways a little bit. But people spotted that 1 year low and invested a little bit on higher volumes in some Ravens as well. Thrasher next, finally responsive chart is back, and that one is doing okay, although we do once again start at 1.4 million and we end at around 1 million on average, so clearly we're down over 6 months, but it's not as pronounced as with the battleships because it is a standard destroyer, and the fetching of the sellers, a bit slow still. 1 million for the sellers, 1,030,000 let's say for the sellers, and less than 1 million for the buyers, obviously under pressure as well. Tornado next. Here once again, battlecruiser, bigger ship. You can see the downtrend, the pressure from the mineral prices, trying to move away from that 60 million ISK, less than that, 59 million on average on a day. Higher volumes are trying to kick the prices back up a little bit. Sellers are still at 60 million coming in though, so it's going to be tricky. And buyers are at 56 million for the Tornado. Next up here we've got Tristan, very interesting double spike here up to almost 800,000 ISK, let's say 750. Average price, we're around that 500,000, and we're at 460,000 here with a low at 420. So again, the November decrease in price, bit of a jump up on the higher volumes at the tail end, but if high-sec minerals continue to go down or stay this slow, I do think that we're in for substantially lower prices in the foreseeable future, or less than average prices, let's say, in the foreseeable future for Tech 1 chips, even for some of the smaller ones here. Sellers at 500,000, buyers at 400,000 for the Tristan. Venture next. Tried to do a couple weeks ago what let's say the Dominics and the Raven is doing now. So 6 month low to 220,000. Tried to crawl back a little bit. Look at that, back to 210,000. 227 for the sellers, 210 for the buyers. Yep, ventures are probably being overproduced substantially. A big part as well, someone noted that in the last EVE talk, is that we got free ventures in the gifts, and this is probably adding to supply, causing the second dip right here. And then next up here we've got the Vexor. It's a cruiser, so it's not as pronounced as with the Dominics. No, let's maybe show the Raven. The decrease in price due to minerals, but it is clearly there as well from November on. In fact, all the way down here, average price is going to 6 month lows at less than 10 million ISK. Sellers at 10.2, buyers 9 million. Lack of demand, increased supply, low prices for minerals is causing these Tech 1 ships to be extremely cheap at the moment, which is not bad in and of itself if it is not your major area of business, of course. Next up, Tech 2 ships, 2830. Let's go. So for Tech 2 ships, we're checking the smaller ones because I was seeing a little bit more volatility here. A possible war in Nullsec, even if it's not a major war with big super capital engagements, will often involve stealth bomber fleets, interceptor fleets and things like that. So it could be good to keep an eye on those. The Ares at the moment is, well, below average, I would say, in the last few days, 21.5 million. Buyers are at 19.5. You could maybe try to pick a couple of those up. You can see the volumes up from time to time, although not all that drastically. I would say we're below average, and you could try to invest in a couple of those if you expect Ares to be flown actively and lost in the war. Next up here we've got the Claw. A little bit above average, but also under pressure, 22 million on average. Buyers are at 19.7 million. So once again, you could try it, you know, to try to pick up a few claws on the cheap for around 20 million. Hope for a big interceptor fleet that's being called out by a right counter, and that it needs to be replaced on the short term. Crow next, a little bit of a spike, that's quite interesting. So you could have bought these for, let's say, 22 million. Here we get a spike up to 27 million. That's actually respectable. We're out of crows. Probably a pretty popular interceptor, if I'm not mistaken, for the Imperium. This is one that is flown quite often. I think because missiles are pretty good all around combat system in PvP, and as a result we're out of crows. So if you bought a few, then this is your time to sell, because we had a little bit of a spike up to 27 million, which, well, at a purchase of 20 million, buyers are up to 24, but you can see here 21, 22 million was definitely in the cards. It's doable. It makes you a little bit of profit despite the taxes. Ares next, Interdictor, not much of a show of action here, so I'd be a little bit hesitant. Where are the buyers at? Can be an indication. 42 million, maybe I'd prefer to see it a little bit lower, closer to 40 million, like this low. But if you absolutely want to invest and risk a gamble, maybe you could try to purchase a few Ares. Flycatcher next, slowly going up here. So unfortunately at 61 million, I would not be investing at this point anymore. Buyers are at 54 million, decent margin, but I feel it's a little bit risky at this point. With average price of 52 on the board not that long ago, even 51 million not that long ago, I wouldn't move here. Heretic next, you can see quite a bit of volatility. Unfortunately, we're coming off of a sell opportunity at 57 million with bottoms at 45 million. The buyers are still at around 50 million, so it's too early to still try to buy. But it shows that some of these smaller ships are still alive and that you could risk some trades in those. The Hound next, coming off of a nice little spike here, 30 million, when you could have bought for maybe 18 million, something like that, pretty easily. We're back towards 20 million on average. Buyers are at, let's see if they're closer to 90 or 18. Yeah, closer to 19 than 18, so you need to get rid of these first. 14 orders here, and then you're below 18 million. That's when you can try to pick up a few cheap Hounds. That will definitely make you money on another big stealth bomber loss. Malediction next, another interceptor going down here, median daily price 22 million at this point. Where are the buyers at? Could be interesting. The buyers are 21.2 million, just one order though, than 20 million. Close to 20, I would say, yeah, worth the risk for an investment. It's around here on the chart, so possibly building up to a nice buy opportunity. Manticore next, here again you can see sell opportunity at 20 million, buy opportunity 24, something like that. We're back at 22.7, buyers are 21 million. I would say if you would have to spend a little bit of money in the Tech 2 market now, just look at the supply of these Manticores, look at the buyers are at 21 million, and if some stealth bombing happens, Manticore is part of that business. I think this could be the one that I would make a move on. Nemesis next, possibly as well. Look at that again from high points right here. Let's say 30 million. Low points are at around 20 million. We're still not that low, but the buyers, where are they at? 19 million. Yeah, I'd prefer closer to below 19 million, but it's just around that price. So it's not as good as the Manticore, I would say, but you could risk this as well. Purifier next, also coming up from a high point, but still not anywhere close to the 20 million mark. 19.9 million for the sellers. I'd wait it out until we're closer to 19 million, honestly, or even less than that. So yeah, Manticore still looking the best one. And then finally the Saber here. Look at that buy opportunity, not bad, 47.6 million. Seller opportunity at 57.6 million. Double step down now, so it's still too early. 46 million for the buyers. Well, actually, that's not that bad. That's actually well below the chart. So yeah, lack of demand. Sabers, maybe. It's a bit more risky, I think, because of course you don't have full fleets of only interdictors, but the buyers are pretty damn low on this as well. And I think that, yeah, the Tech 2 market, it's all about the small ships at the moment, to be honest. For the larger ships, it's more faction stuff. And then those are mostly being produced locally, because, well, big alliances are definitely holding their space decently well at the moment. Next up, the Tech 3 markets, 34.30. I'm making pretty good time this week. That's quite interesting. I'm of course rushing it a little bit as well because I'm not 100%, but let's see what the tech tree market's been doing here. The Confessor moving back in double step a little bit. The low point was less than 35 million. We're back towards 40 million actually. So 40 million for the sellers, 36 million for the buyers. And yeah, you could have probably picked up some really cheap Confessors for like a little bit above 30 million not that long ago. It was a bit of a gamble of course because of the nerfs, but back to 40 million on the seller side of things. Hecate next, 38 million for the sellers, still under pressure. Where are the buyers at? 34 million for your consideration. Definitely a 6-month low at this point for the Hecate. The Jackdaw next, it's trying, but it's again hesitating at 36 million. Buyers are 33 million though, sellers 36.5 million. So if you expect some more volatility like what happened here with the Confessor, then this is the right time to actually try to pick up a few cheap Jackdaws and Hecates. And finally, no, not Proteus, but the Svepul. That one is moving away from its bottom, so you could have purchased these for 31 million, pretty easy. Median daily price now 39 million, sellers at 40 million, buyers at 36 million. So it does happen, right? A lot of people said, well, they're nerfed into oblivion. Nope, not just yet. In just a couple of weeks here, 10 million difference between what you could have purchased and what you can sell them for now. And just look at the pattern here, moving back up. Here the Confessor went back up, hesitating, but is already back up as well. And here the Hecate, look at that, 6-month low. The Jackdaw, 6-month low as well. I think it's only a matter of time until history repeats itself in those two destroyers as well. So if you're fast and if you're willing to take a bit of a gamble, try to pick up a few cheap Hecates and Jackdaws. I think it's a good idea. Next up, we've got the Legion here. Chart is probably the most interesting. After going for a 6-month low at 130, we're back up a little bit towards 140. Fresh supply, almost a full front page, so it's definitely a decent amount. We're just under pressure. We're not at the low point just yet. Loki next, crawling out of the hole as well. A low point of 110, 130 at the moment. Fresh supply. Not that much anymore, 135, so you can see that the Loki might go up a little bit. The Legion will probably go down a little bit. They'll meet just below 140, it looks like. Proteus though, different story. 6-month low in the works at 140. 141 for the sellers, 132 for the buyers. I would understand your hesitation, but to be honest, 133 million for Proteus is pretty low. That's around here on the chart. If you can pick those up, I think looking at the chart, you could risk a small investment there. And finally the Tengu, very similar chart, also 6-month low towards 130, buyers are at 126. Yeah, I think that the Tengu makes most sense actually trying to pick a few of those up. You are going to get Tengu fleets at some point. It's still a good shield tank with missiles. It's still a decent ship. So yeah, Tengu very interesting, Proteus very interesting, Jackdaw as well, and the Hecate as well, in my opinion. Tengu, definitely the one that springs out to me here with buyers at 126. You could probably pick those up at 128. Don't go overboard. Don't try to pick up hundreds of Tengus, but a couple I think should definitely be possible and should make you some money at some point. And then finally, for the extra product this week, I'm just taking a couple of suggestions from the comments at, let's say, 3830. So I had a request, well, since we're under attack anyways, for the Raitaru and the Astrahus. So let's see if we can spot those and if those are being sold. Standard Citadels, Astrahus. Let's take a look at that. Currently selling for 1.3 billion, 1,289,000,000. So yeah, almost 1.3 billion. Buyers are at 1.1 billion. Definitely a pretty okay price and decently stable in the last 6 months. And then for the engineering complexes, let's take a look at the Raitaru. Of course, it's a lot newer, so we're going down, but they're already selling for 650 million. Buyers are at 600 million. So this is already below the aimed price from CCP, probably because of the lower mineral cost at some point. Do you need minerals for that? I actually don't think so. No, actually you don't. So yeah, pretty cheap actually. 650 for a Raitaru is definitely not the cost. It's less than a carrier, less than a capital ship. So this also explains why it's so difficult to defend that from just 5 battleships. But just, yeah, very interesting, of course. New introduction in November, which is why we're getting this weird chart here. And going down from 1.5 billion to less than 700 million in no time at all. It makes these very affordable. In fact, I'm going to just check all of them. Next up here, we've got the Fortizar, still going for around 13.5 billion for the 0.6 billion for the sellers. That's actually okay, right? I've got that in the wallet. It'd be a big risk and a major investment. I wouldn't want to lose that, so I'm not going to deploy a Fortizar. I'm willing to lose the small stuff. That's not that important. Buyers are at 11 billion. And then for a keep store, no sellers, of course. That's a little bit big to try and flip like that. And when it comes to the engineering complex, so we get the Raitaru, then we get the Asbel that is selling for 5.2 billion. You know, that's definitely doable. I think we'll actually see a lot of Asbel markets pop up across HiSec at this point, because this is still something that a small corporation can afford to lose, and you can put a market in that, which of course gives you a potentially very nice income. And what makes that very interesting in my opinion is that this definitely democratizes a lot of the market. It's going to put more pressure on possible taxes in other trade hubs, as people can deploy their own markets for around 5 billion ISK, which is definitely not that much. And then Sotio, of course, the biggest one, is not for sale just yet. And another request, so these are the structures, and another request is for the Orca. So let's take a look at that. Orca selling for 805 million ISK, 820 let's say for most sellers, 754 for the buyers. And after a jump up from average 700 million, jumped up to 900 million, currently at 800 million. So you're still paying a bit of a premium because of the changes to the Orca. It's now a possible miner. I actually still think that it's a good solo miner. You have to risk a completely untanked Mackinac or other ship with a much smaller ore bay in order to match the yield of the Orca. This one you can get max yield, you can get a decent tank. So I still think that it's an okay thing to work towards, even as a solo miner, in my opinion. And that's why you're now paying a premium of around 100 million compared to before the Ascension expansion on the Orca. You can also see the increased volume there. There is definitely interest in Orcas at the moment, and I'm getting a lot of mail at the moment because of the war deck, so I'm gonna check on all of that. I'll keep you guys up to date for that as well, but for now that's going to be it for this EVE talk. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you all next time.